Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan. Welcome to Inside the Birds, presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. And we are zooming away from the draft, and we are headed full steam ahead into the actual off season. Adam, and you and I are going to start to take a look at how this team now is shaking out, how the roster is shaping up. We'll go through some of the transactional news that's happened in the last few days. We'll talk about some contract stuff, and of course, we'll go through remaining team needs right now. There's still team needs for this team. We'll take a look at the ones on offense, and then in the next pod, the next pod, we should have the undrafted rookie signings, I would think, right? That'll be officially announced, you would think?
Yeah, they don't sign them until they were not signed as of this morning. They typically sign them when they're at camp, and then the reason why we don't do it is because we've been tricked before with guys changing their mind. It happens way too much during the undrafted free agent period. It's really interesting how because if you don't sign, you can't hold it against the player or the agent. Although clubs will do that when they back out, it could get very ugly. But anyway, as soon as they're official, which means they have to be official by this weekend, so it means we'll talk about them on our next show, and we'll have much better intel for you in there. It's we're going to give you kind of the background on AJ Brown's contract. We've been hinting at it that it was going to have to happen. There's no timeline, but because a bunch of deals are going to get done and have gotten done sooner rather than later, so this has become a problem. Heading to training camp, they took care of that, like they seemingly always do. They do such a phenomenal job of getting to these guys early, particularly avoiding any potential problems that are not or don't need to happen with their own players. So, we'll get into that. And man, you had a great interview. I'm done half of it. This is on Patreon only on Quinyon Mitchell's coach from Toledo, his DB's coach, right?
Yes, his cornerback's coach, oddly enough, his name is Corey Parker. Now he goes to the Eagles. That's Christian Parker, no relation. But yeah, Corey Parker has been the cornerbacks coach at Toledo the last 2 years. So he had nobody works more with a prospect or a player than their position coach. So he gives a really nice insight into what makes Quinyon Mitchell tick, what kind of player he is, what kind of person he is, why he felt he stayed at Toledo. You've heard Quinyon talk about relationships. Well, he detailed some of those relationships. And he also I asked him to really take me behind the scenes. What's he like in practice? What's he like watching film with, and all the nitty gritty that goes into being a first round prospect. And it was a great interview. So I, encourage you to check it out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/inside the birds. Also, we want to divert your attention to insidethebirds.com, where Andrew DeCecco is writing some really in-depth stuff as well. He got in touch with Jalix Hunt's coach, his head coach, former head coach at Houston Christian. He's already moved on to Campbell. But Houston Christian is where this coach, got to develop Jalix Hunt, and Andrew got some really good inside intel there on Jalix Hunt's development from a guy who was a safety at Cornell to how he got to Houston Christian and what he was and how he emerged into a third-round pick there. Andrew's also doing depth chart stuff. He's looking at he's doing his projected depth chart both on offense and defense. Something really stuck out to me on defense, Adam. We'll probably wind up talking about it today just a little bit, and then more so in the next pod when we do defensive remaining needs. But the Eagles are thin at one area that they're not normally thin at, and that really jumped out to me when I was looking at Andrew's depth chart on defense. So all that is there on insidethebirds.com. And of course, we had a great Ask ITB live stream with our Patreon community on Wednesday night. And you're going to do the chat next Wednesday, right? On Discord?
It'll be probably next Thursday. Yes, at 8 Eastern. Okay. Yep. We go half an hour on our Discord. And we've been giving out so much information on Discord, really starting in free agency. And we love going on there. The cool thing about this time of year, now we're in May, we get to do shows, and we'll do a coaching show. Someone put it on, someone suggested it. It's always been on our list, do a deep dive on the coaching background on both sides of the football. And look at defense, they got almost a whole new staff
Yeah.
It's a great suggestion. So we're gonna delve into that. What we like to do is we like to talk to people who've worked with these coaches before to give them get background on them.
Hmm.
It's not like we know these guys personally very well, or if at all. So it's we always want to know what they're like. How good are they? Look, the key is development. How good are they at developing players? So we'll look into that.
Definitely. All right, we want to welcome our new Patreon members, Jordan and Richard. So, welcome to the community. Hope you're taking advantage of all the extra content, bonus content, Discord, and interviews and things of that nature. All right, let's talk about some transactions here. This is very typical. It happens a lot around the league after the draft. Teams are looking at their rosters. They're starting to, I don't know, cut the fat, so to speak. So the Eagles waived a quartet of players. Adam, anyone go through the names and tell me if any one of them surprised you or you saw it coming.
No, well, what happens is you also have to clear room on your 90-man roster. So
Right.
that's once they're signed, you got to account for them before that you sign the players. So Griffin Hebert or Hurt A Bear, we're not really sure how do you pronounce it because he's a former college tight end. We know Andrew DeCecco wrote him up months ago. No, they could bring him back. By the way, the four players we're going to talk about briefly here, they all cleared waivers. Nobody claimed them. So A Bear or Hebert. He was cut. Lester Smith was cut. It was the center. Was drafted by the Cardinals. Noah Ellis has been on and off the roster for 3 years. He was cut again. Was waived. And Taiwan Mullen. Now if they have like 80 slot corners, all the sort of nickel players, he's gone. But you never know. He could be brought back. But the thing is, though, now that they're free and if they're not on a roster, uh, by end of August, the Eagles could always bring him back to the practice squad when teams put their practice squads together back in late August and early September. So who knows? But yeah, that's what happens now. Teams start cutting players because they have to clear roster space on their 90-man roster. By the way, the 90-man roster starts at the start of free agency. You go from 53 to 90. And I always find it interesting. So some teams don't, they might keep 88. Some teams keep 88, 87. For whatever reason, I don't know. Most keep 90, but some don't for whatever reason.
You might see some of these guys still come and compete at the tryout when the rookies get in, and basically that gives them an opportunity and the team a chance to say, all right, here are a couple of rookie free
Oh
agents
yeah, I
we
hadn't thought
signed.
about that. I
Here are a
hadn't thought
couple of
about that.
these guys. Is it
Yeah,
worth keeping the rookie free agent over this guy? Does somebody get hurt? I mean, so
sure.
there's an opportunity to still kind of get your competition and improve yourself against some of the new blood that the team is bringing in to make the team decide which one's worth it.
Oh, and John Ross got the rookie camp tryout. So
Yes,
the guy could run. We know he was he should have been a second round pick, and I think he was drafted what ninth overall. Does that sound right in
by the
2017?
Bengals.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I remember talking to someone close to them. They couldn't believe it. Like they were told that's not like anyway. It wouldn't be drafted anywhere close to that. Oh well. In fact, I just remember. Um, Actually, no, we put it on our show back then. They back in 2019 or 2020, whenever the heck it was, whenever or 21, whatever it was. The Eagles actually talked to the Bengals about potentially acquiring him. This is when they were trying to get Deshaun back, whatever year that was, 2020 or something
Mhm.
like that. But the Eagles, this is when the Eagles had no speed, and they looked into it, and the Bengals weren't interested in doing it, and here we are. They brought him in years later, and the thing is, yeah, they've got a crowded room now, but when you look at it, we'll talk about this later in the show. Parker and Campbell they have serious injury histories. If one of them gets hurt, what do you have? Guys who've never really done anything before, either rookies or Ngata, Jacob Harris, Shaquan Davis,
Mhm.
Austin Watkins, totally untested. So why not bring the guy in? Who knows?
Yeah, no, 100%. So the Eagles' interest in talking to Cincinnati with him is that the Eagles liked him coming out of the draft. Not
Did
top,
they? I don't
yeah,
remember.
yeah, not top
Okay.
10, but I remember the
Yeah.
Eagles liked him. They always
Okay.
liked speed receivers.
Yep.
I gotta tell you, I love John Ross coming out of Washington until the pre-draft cycle, and we start calling around and doing our homework, and then you hear some things, and it's like, oh, well, then maybe
Well,
it's question the toughness
injuries.
a little bit, injury history,
Injuries
love
was
for
big.
football, that kind of
Yep.
thing. Yeah.
He could
Yeah.
run. He could run.
He can certainly run. All right, so that's that. Speaking of can run and make plays and can catch the ball, AJ Brown, the latest wide receiver or the latest player on the Eagles to sign an extension. God, so many extensions handed out by the Eagles this year,
I think
which
seven.
Which, as we said, GMs consider that a big part of free agency. Fans don't. They consider free agency, you sign a player from a different team. GMs say, no, free agency begins when you start to re-sign your own players, so you don't have to overspend on players from other teams. And the Eagles obviously doing a good job in developing a talent. They traded for AJ Brown. They've gotten way more than they could have expected. Two
Mm,
1,400-yard seasons. But
mm.
Adam, his contract really became problematic from them from a stay or go standpoint because, as you've talked about before, of the money that he stood to make at the back end.
Yeah, the contract was so backloaded. It was reported 25 million a year. The real money was not even close to that. And they got a bargain. Remember, they had to get the deal done. The timeline was before the Eagles were going to pick, so because they had to give up the first round pick. So they had to get the deal done, and they were able to get it done. And it was reported at 25.1 million. It was really the real money was closer to 20 million a year. And the real problem that AJ had, because we knew this, that his side had been calling the Eagles trying to get a new deal. And for the Eagles to do it, they kind of knew, like, if he blew it up for 2 years, which he did, still a very young guy. He turns just 27 June 30th, which is incredible to me. He's still that young. He was a first round, it was second round pick in 2019 by the Titans. But they knew that this is going to be a problem because after this season, there was no guaranteed money. And they have some cap challenges, a bunch of cap numbers are going to rise. So they're not just giving away money, they're going to have to get a break. So they got a break on, we haven't got the breakdown yet on the cap on everything, but we know that the cap number is going to go down significantly next year for him with the new deal. It wouldn't on the old deal. The old deal, his base salary is 15.25 million. Cap number is 26.6 million. No guaranteed money. And 26 was what I call the dummy year. This is what jacked up the contract. This is like ridiculous. His unguaranteed base salary for 26 on the old deal was 30.25 million. Sure, good luck. And his cap number was a quarterback unfriendly 41.64 million. Of course he would never see it.
Yeah, no. I
So
mean,
yeah.
yeah, the Eagles, they've been doing this for quite a while. They've been giving the extension at the right time. They've been managing, spreading it out over years, dummy years. And then when time comes where it looks like a player they want to keep is on a big number, then they figure out a way to restructure it or give an extension and lower the money. And they've been doing that. That's pretty consistent with what they've been doing. The only
Yeah.
question that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
had was because of the knee history, right?
Yep. Yep.
And because every once in a while he kind of makes a headline and you're like, whoa, what's this guy saying, right?
Oh,
Were the Eagles going to hold that against him, so to speak, or were the Eagles going to look for another wide receiver, which they did not, and they didn't draft one. They were gonna. The guy had two 1,400-yard seasons
yeah,
in a
of
row.
course.
Like at
Yeah.
this point, you want him on your team. You
Right.
need
You
him on
mean
your team.
draft one early? No, they didn't. Yeah.
Right? No, they
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. They didn't draft a
Yeah.
wide receiver early.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
No, he's a great teammate, as Dick Sirianni said. What else could you ask for? I remember when they made the trade, I said, don't worry about the numbers that he put up with Tennessee. It's because they're a run-based team. This guy's an absolute superstar.
yeah.
And he's incredible connecting with people. This is what the Titans told me. And it's not a secret. You saw what Mike Vrabel did. Mike Vrabel was super pissed off. He couldn't hide it. And their offensive coaches were very close to AJ then, and he was sort of like the heart and soul of their offense. For a team that really didn't throw the ball very much, when they did, it went to him, quite
hmm
frankly.
hmm
And the guy's been unbelievable. I mean, other than I know people have their opinions. Other in the last 30 years, other than the Jason Pierce one, which was unbelievable, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And what Eagles got? What a great trade that was. I mean, everybody will have their opinions. I find it hard to believe there's a better trade than this. I'm not obviously I'm missing something if there is, but this was. And look, you mentioned it in passing. The big reason why the Titans gave him an awful offer is because they were concerned about the longevity of his career with his knees. And knock on wood, he hasn't missed a game, right? Or he missed one, but what was it
No,
for?
the only thing that really sticks out is that didn't he get hurt against Tampa in the playoffs and he had to come out of the game, and
Well, he
after
didn't play.
that it was like the roof caved in, didn't it?
Right. Well, they couldn't do anything. Right.
Did he
Right.
play in it? I can't even remember. Did he
No,
play?
he didn't play. No, he didn't
That's right,
play.
he didn't
Right.
play.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying regular season. Did he miss any regular season games?
I can't recall. I don't, it doesn't jump out to me.
They
I don't
played
think
the
he did.
Giants the last game of the regular season, and he played but he didn't play against. What was his injury? Do we remember what his injury was? I don't
I
remember.
thought it was the knee.
Okay, because I don't think it was related to the issue. Yeah, because fact. Oh man, on your point. Oh God, Julio Jones started.
Yeah.
Ooh, no wonder. It's a great point. I mean, it's so simplistic but so obvious. They can't. Not that anyone could replace AJ Brown, but you've got to have better depth than that. They learned the hard way about their depth was not good enough at receiver, and it's got to be better this year. That's
Right. I
it.
remember he got hurt in that Giants game when he caught that pass. Remember his knee kind of buckled in the turf there? Shocking against the Giants. I think it was at MetLife Stadium. And then he came out of
Mm,
that game. The Eagles amazingly won that game, but it felt like a loss. Right.
mm.
And then I don't think he played the season finale because they didn't need to, or was
This
that?
one he did against the Giants. I'm looking at the. I'm looking
Oh,
at
that
the.
is that the game he got hurt in then?
I don't know, but he played. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe he
okay.
did. Let me. They won.
I just know you were right that
Oh,
he
they
did
got
not
smoked.
play against the
Oh yeah, didn't he get hurt in the first half of that Giants game? If I'm not mistaken.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
where he caught a
yeah,
pass over the middle. It was like a little dig, and then he
yep,
kind of
yep. I
stumbled,
remember.
and then he was hurting. Yeah.
Yep, he only played 12 snaps. There you go. All right, so yeah, he's look, he's been an unbelievable Eagle. Yeah, he gets a little emotional. Who cares? When the guy's so look, he's a really good teammate. Well, you know that for a fact. Talking to a bunch of people about it. So what a trade! What a guy! What a story! Um, I'm looking at the best Eagles receiver tandem in the history of the club that I can
Hmm.
remember. It's hard to imagine. Fred Barnett and Calvin Williams were nice, but nothing like this. This is I mean, Harold Carmichael and Mike Quick didn't play together very long, and Harold was in the twilight of his career. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, think about how bad it was in 2020 and how great it is with these two guys.
Yeah, no, and think about the talent that they've got now signed for quite a while, and Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts through 2028. You've got AJ Brown through 2029, Devontae Smith 2029. Goddard's one of the few who's not signed for the really long term. He's up after 2025. We'll see what happens
Hmm.
there. But Mylata now, Dickerson through 28. And then, the only short term guys would be Cam Jurgens, who enters year three of a 4-year deal, and Lane Johnson, of course, who may have we'll see 1 or 2 years left, and we'll see.
Well, yeah, I would expect him to play through 26. Now he can't 27. The contract structure would suggest that he couldn't come back without a
Hmm.
new deal. Kind of like with Kelsey's series of 1-year deals where there was a poison pill put in, so they'd have to redo it. But look at the offensive line now. Mylata 28, Dickerson 28 through 28, Jurgens through 25, Johnson through 26. And we'll see what happens at right guard, just in terms of who's going to play it. But I mean, you look at this and the quarterback you mentioned and the three pass targets, Brown, Smith, and Goddard. This is how you build a football team. The team building by Howie's been, man. I just remember we crushed Howie in 2020 because he deserved it based on the mistakes.
Hmm.
Call it like we see it. When he deserves credit, we give it to him. When he doesn't do a good job, when he needs to do a better job, we call it out. We're
Yeah.
very fair. We call it down the middle, and this is how you build a football team. I mean, obviously in defense they need to do a better job, but offensively, I'm thinking. You remember I asked you a couple weeks ago? I said, could this be top three? I don't see how it's not on paper if everybody's healthy.
Offensively,
Yes,
man, it should be.
it's Kellen Moore.
I
It's a
mean,
good
it
scheme,
should theoretically. I mean,
right?
I think there's always a little bit of a learning curve or a transition when you have a new offensive coordinator. Sometimes it takes, sometimes it doesn't. The talent, yes, I agree with you. Talent wise, the Eagles should have scored the most points in the NFL last year with all the talent they have. They should have, right? And now you've added
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley to the mix
Yeah.
here. Now they're not deep at slot, and that's something we'll get into in a minute
Okay.
when we talk about it. For a guy who runs a mostly three receiver offense, that we're gonna have to see what they're gonna do there. But yeah, I mean they've got way more weapons than a lot of other teams can ask for. So as long as things get on the straight and arrow with their offense, it should be very good. And yeah, we do crush Howie fairly, and we did. It wasn't even that far back as 2020. We got on him last year for the defensive moves that he made to replace what he lost, and we were right. I mean that I know that even at 10 and
Oh
1,
yeah.
we were saying this defense is not good. It's not going to stop anybody when it really comes down to the nitty gritty in the second half of the schedule, and it was actually
I,
worse than we thought.
I didn't think it'd be as bad.
No, who thought they'd lose 7 of 8 games? No one.
But the other thing is the offense fought like a cheap tent. It wasn't just the defense sucked second half of the season after
Hmm.
getting off that incredible start. Then it went south, and the offense scheme, play design, adjustments to what the defense, and I always hated this term, but it turned out to be true because other teams were telling us this. They figured the Eagles offense out.
Hmm.
And it was you to use a Cosell line, boy, they were a tough watching offense.
They were. They were.
So
All right, that's a good segue now. We're going to talk about what's left for the
yes.
Philadelphia Eagles on offense, our remaining team needs. Before that, we're going to pause to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay, let's start with where we always start on offense, the quarterback. What do the Eagles need at quarterback? Well, they've got a starting quarterback who signed for the long term in Jalen Hurts, just 2 years removed from what was an MVP caliber season. They've got a former first round pick that they traded a third round pick to get in Kenny Pickett. And they have a kid in Tanner McKee that they drafted 2 years ago who will enter his second year, Adam, who actually showed you some promise there as a rookie in the preseason games. Then we never heard from him again because he didn't play. So the answer to the question, what do they need a quarterback right now, is anything? Nothing, right?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. Then and Will Greer's the teacher in training camp. This is
Forgot about
typical of
him.
when a new OC comes in. He brings a guy in who knows the system. So him and Doug Nussmeier had him in with the Chargers and the Cowboys. So he's there. So yeah, nothing to do. Pickett is under team control for 2 more years, this year and next year. So yeah, the hope is here that he could revive his career and he's out of a tough situation where it went south. And I talked to someone close to him, said he's in great spirits. Kid loves being here. This system, folks. I'm telling you, it's one of the most quarterback and offensive friendly systems you could be in. It's a hybrid sort of college concepts with stuff that Kellen Moore's learned at the NFL level from Mike McCarthy and other coaches. So looking forward to this with this great talent they're going to be able to work with. And Kenny Pickett, look, we could argue whether he should have been a second or third round pick, but he wasn't. He was a first round pick. So there's talent there.
Yep, there is. Someone asked me recently, what are the odds of Tanner McKee maybe outplaying Pickett and becoming the number 2 quarterback? And I
Ooh.
said like little or none. I mean, I think even if Pickett's bad and McKee still looks good, they're gonna go start the season with Pickett at the number 2. I don't see a pathway here. Maybe you see it differently. I think one would have to be so amazingly good, McKee, and the other would have to be so amazingly bad, Pickett, for that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And plus, Tanner McKee is not very mobile. Pickett is.
Yeah.
That matters to coaches because in today's NFL, it wasn't like this when I first started covering it with you many decades ago, where clubs wanted a drop back passer. Not anymore. It's not like they wouldn't want one, but they want a guy who could throw off platform. If the pocket breaks down, they want the guy to be able to move.
Mm-hmm.
And McKee, I mean, we watched him training camp. Was not impressed. I really don't think he would have made it had he not looked lights out against Baltimore. It just in terms of standing in there and throwing it, boy, like wow,
Yeah.
made some great throws. But Pickett's way more mobile, and let's see what they can do with him.
By the way, I think if you asked most people, right, just stop most Eagles fans or whatever, and said, "What do you think Kenny Pickett's record in the NFL as a starting quarterback is?" I think 90% of the people would be wrong, completely wrong, right? They'd probably say like, I don't know, like 8-12 or 6 and no, he's got
Yep,
a winning record. I
I
mean, I
know.
know that that's not a quarterback stat, but he is 14-10 as a quarterback. So again, I think it would have to be, I'd have to be like the craziest of outplaying Kenny Pickett to unseat him.
Yeah, and one more thing before we move on to running back. Understand a couple things here. Yes, Pickett did not play well. He had a great offseason last year talking to Steelers. He really did. I saw it in training camp when I heard about it. Everything was going well. He went south in the regular season. Not going to sugarcoat it, but bad scheme. The OC got fired in season. It just it was a disaster, and now he gets to be revived here. Sometimes being in a new environment, you know, is he from South Jersey? Where's he from in Jersey? I forget.
Well, if you're originally like if you're South Jersey, deep
Yeah.
South Jersey, you think
Yeah.
Ocean County is or Monmouth County. I think he's Ocean County. Yeah, Ocean County
Okay.
is North Jersey. If you
There
live
we
in
go.
like
Yeah.
Bergen County, North Jersey, you think Ocean County. South Jersey, most of us just call it the shore.
I knew it was the shore. I just couldn't remember. Right. Okay. So look.
There is a small pocket of Jersey that is acceptable to be called Central Jersey, and I feel like Monmouth and Ocean
Oh
County
yeah. Wait,
and
you know what's funny?
Ewing, like Mercer County area.
We actually talked about that 2 years ago on this show when he was drafted. I think because when we were doing a breakdown with Greg for that draft, I
Mhm.
remember you bringing that exactly up. But be careful where you say he's from because there's a dividing line.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the football version of the Mason-Dixon line, somewhere in Trenton, down all the way across to the whatever you trace to get to the like LBI, right? That's the delineation line.
Love ladies, man.
And you wear the wrong color. It's like gang, man. You wear the wrong colors in the wrong
Uh-oh, be
area,
careful,
you're gonna
man.
get into
Yeah,
trouble.
sure.
All right, let's go to the running backs. So I'm fascinated by this running back group because to me it's the most remade running back group the Eagles have had maybe since 2017 when they all of a sudden you got like Eric Blunt, you got Jay Ajayi, you got Corey Clement. None of these three guys had been with the team the year before, right?
It's
So
crazy. Yeah.
now you look at them and they've got Saquon Barkley, and clearly he's the lead horse in this backfield. The kid they got from San Francisco,
Ty Davis
Davis
Price.
Price, right?
Yep.
They draft Will Shipley.
Yep.
Kenny Gainwell is the only holdover, and our good friend Boston Scott will no longer, find 5 or 6 random carries to get. He is now signed with where did he go again?
The Rams. Yeah, the
Rams,
Eagles
right.
did it was a I don't want to call it a divorce. It was a separation. He wanted out because he didn't have a role last year. He got paid $2 million. He was highest paid Eagles running back, and he didn't use him.
That sounds like a great job if you ask me, but
I
I
know,
guess if
but
if you want
he's
to play,
competitive. Yeah. Was he there 6 years? 2018, right? 5 years,
19,
6 years?
I think 19 or 18.
I think it was 18. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
was
is it
18.
that long?
Yeah. Crazy. I'll double check. I'm reasonably sure it was.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Yes. Technically, they signed him away December 2018. Yes.
From the
Yeah.
Saints, right? Okay,
Yep.
so yeah, so it's
Crazy.
more like 5 years and a month, but still, that's a long
Yeah.
time. I
Crazy.
didn't
Yeah.
realize it was that long.
5. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the Giants
19,
are happy,
20.
I'm sure.
5 full seasons, 19 through 23.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, technically, if you want to say 6 years, yeah. So anyway, so Ty Davis Price was his own runner. That's why they brought him in because he's explosive. He's also 215, 220 of LSU, former 3rd-round pick. Lou Nichols, you've mentioned before, former 7th-round pick of the Packers, has got good size.
Yeah, 220 pounds.
Yep. So we'll take a look at him. But here's the thing, though. Let's move this forward. If Barkley can't play, and his injury history would tell you he probably will not play a couple games because of injury, just based on history, what's their answer? Are they really going to go with Kenny Gainwell with Will Shipley if he's out 3 or 4 games?
That's a great question. I mean, you've always said, and I think it applies here, depth isn't how many bodies you have, it's how many people who can play. I think Ty Davis Price has a pretty good opportunity here as a former 3rd-round pick to kind of find a new home. With a big body like that, I can see him maybe being a better inside runner, which is what the Eagles zone is. They're more of a duo and inside zone run team, whereas the Niners
They'll do gap too.
Yeah, all inside stuff. Whereas the Niners were more of a wide stretch zone, so maybe he finds a better. I mean, he's a 3rd-round pick. We thought this about Trey Sermon though, and it never really worked out. But I will say, I mean, the Eagles had a little bit more actual depth at running back when Sermon was trying to make the team. Now, to me, it's an open door, right? It's a great competition. Gainwell goes into year 4. He'll probably be on the team.
Oh yeah, he'll definitely be on
because
the team.
the coach is like it's year 4. But if they're going to keep 3 backs, 4 backs, I mean, there's a good competition there for those last 2 spots.
You know what? On your point about how many backs they'll keep, ordinarily you keep 4, sometimes 5. I think they might have started the season with 5. I can't remember.
Yeah, one year they kept 5. Yeah,
but because they have so many defensive backs, safety, and corners, they may not be able to keep. They may just practice squad it. Gainwell, Barkley, Shipley, and again, we're only in May. We don't. It's too early, but I'm just giving you a heads up. If it's a numbers game, you saw them crazily keep 7 defensive tackles, then they would trade the 1 veteran defensive tackle after the season started to Atlanta, because one of their D tackles got hurt. But there might be a numbers game. They might have a problem. They're a little heavy. They're never this heavy on defense, but they're heavy at certain at off the ball linebacker and in the secondary. They're kind of heavy, so that could impact what they keep on offense.
So I would say with all the names we went through, running back is not just like quarterback. They don't have a need for one. However,
Right.
with Barkley's injury history, you'd never want to be in a situation where your top two running backs are like Kenny Gainwell and Will Shipley, or Kenny Gainwell and Ty Davis Price. I mean, it seems to me like there's always some good running backs on the market. There's always guys get cut. So like that would be an area how we would look at if Barkley were to have an injury. You might want to bring in a veteran or someone who's carried the ball a little bit.
Yep, on that point, and we'll move on. So we reported at the trade deadline 2 years ago, they were in heavy talks with the Browns for Kareem Hunt. It wound up not happening. Now Hunt is out there and he's older. I have no idea if he has anything left. He can protect, he can catch, but man, oh boy, I'm looking at the list of guys who are out there. Cam Akers is out there. He's had a lot of injuries. Latavius Murray, who's actually, he's more of a grinder now. He used to be very explosive. He could great in short yardage. Melvin Gordon's out there. Rashad Penny's out there. Sorry. That's Brandon Bolden's only special teams player. I'm looking at my list. Marlon Mack's out there. It's more of a 3.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook, I know he was training to come back. I know he wants to play. Talk about a guy who's dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is. There'll be somebody. What did he flip for Jay Ajayi that year? It was like a 5th round pick.
Yeah, it was. Boy, what a move! What a trade that was. Wow.
There'll be somebody there.
Yeah. All
right. As we move on to tight end, this feels like that situation you talk about where a lot of bodies doesn't mean you have depth. They have to be able to play. Although there are the CJ Uzama signing at tight end gives them a guy who can play the position. Obviously, Dallas Goedert's number 1. I guess there's without Jack Stoll here, there's some open competition for the Y, but I would think Uzama would be unquestionably the leader. Yeah, he's the Y.
Yeah, he'll be the Y, no question. Now again, if he can move, the Jets moved on from him, but I'm going to look at his contract as we speak. Now they're guaranteed 550 of his 1.4 million. Not a lot of money. You could cut him if you're not happy with him. You could walk away from that. But he's an experienced guy. Guy's been in the Super Bowl. Because the only other Y they have on the roster is Noah Tungia, who's been on and off this roster several times, and he hasn't really proven anything. So yeah, you would think when they go 12 personnel, it's Uzama and Goddard. And we know Goddard could play Y. He could play because he's a good blocker. And when they want to go spread, it's Goddard, and then obviously Calcaterra or Albert O. By the way, Albert O's back.
Yeah.
Back. So I feel better if they have Uzama for that blocking tight end, but man, it would be nice if they had a good all around young tight end who could do everything. They just don't have that guy because Albert O doesn't block very well.
Right.
So that's where they're at.
All right. So that would be tight end. And then we will finish off with the offensive line. Before we do that, why don't we pause to hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right. I keep wrestling, going back and forth with this, Adam.
WWE or?
Yes, I'm banging my head against the wall. I'm taking a chair, slamming my head into it. I'm throwing myself off of Hell in the Cell. The steel cage, just trying to figure out, do the Eagles really need another offensive lineman? And I'm putting myself through the grinder.
It is. It's kind of interesting because Matt Hennessy's their top backup guard center. So if Juergens couldn't play, he would be the first guy in. He may be given a chance to compete against Steen, who clearly is, unless he just completely doesn't know what he's doing in OTAs and mandatory camp. He'll enter training camp as the number 1 on the depth chart. Doesn't mean he'll be the starter in September against the Packers and Brazil, but
Right, but put it this way, they want him to be the starter.
yes, 100%.
They absolutely do.
Well, they really wanted him last year, but he wasn't ready because he was so new to it. And as we were talking about before training camp started, he didn't have the techniques down.
Mhm.
I just couldn't believe they wouldn't even let him compete for it. They just handed they didn't hand Steen the job. They handed Jurgens the job. That I didn't see that happening. That was
Well,
kind
they
of
must have. Obviously, you go to OTAs, you see what they must have noticed that he just wasn't even comfortable with the technique on the
right.
right side,
But they didn't. But you're right. But here's the thing: that they didn't even bring in anyone to compete against Jurgens, right? I don't think
for
so.
right guard.
Yeah, I think they should handed it to him.
Well, I mean, they were at that time, right? They still had Opeta. They still had man, who did they have?
Driscoll.
Driscoll. Yeah, like they had enough guys that they knew could play the position. But here, now that you've got sort of two guys who are new to their position with Jurgens at center, meaning new that he only played it 2 years at Nebraska, and this is the first time he's actually going to play it here as a starter, and then Steen at right guard. I understand them wanting to have more veteran depth. But like you said, you got Hennessy, you got Fred Johnson at left tackle, you've got now Mekhi Becton,
Oh
who
yeah.
again still has to make the team, and as we reported, is going to get a look at both tackle and guard.
Hmm.
And then I'm missing the Darian Kennard that they brought in
Yeah.
from. They've got Pretoth or Toth, however you pronounce that.
Yeah.
Raven Clark's been a veteran. I mean, I
Yep.
don't know if you really think they need another veteran guard here, or
No, here's why. There's only one reason, because Hennessy has a significant injury history.
fair.
He had a major knee injury last year. He didn't even play. He was on injury reserve the entire season.
Mhm.
That does worry me a little bit. I mean, he's been on IR last 2 years. That's a concern. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you know that look, this team. I'm not saying they're going to make another Super Bowl run. I'm not saying that. But Howie's done a really good job of this offense should be lights out. The coordinator's really good. The real Vic Fangio is going to run his real scheme. So the defense is just going to be coached better. The guy who came up with the scheme, and it's not going to be run by his disciples anymore. It's actually Vic.
Mhm.
Now the off the ball linebacker group. Let's put it this way. I know all of them have challenges. Dean, health, White got benched multiple times. You don't know what you're expecting. He's got talent, but he freelances too much. Okay, we'll get in more to him when we do the defensive stuff. Burks is a good backup. Trotter Jr. is a rookie. We'll see. Bond is a multi-positional player. He's really been mostly a special teams player. Van Sumeren, they thought so little of him after that great game against the Giants. They have all these inside linebackers, so
Right.
he's not going to get a chance to compete for the starting job. But they have better talent. We'll see how it manifests itself. Sweat's back. They have a lot of questions on defense. Offensively, they really don't. But the team will be coached better. Clint Hurtt's a phenomenal D-line coach, one of the best in the NFL. They're going to be better. But can they take the next step? Can they get back to high respectability? Can they be that team that could take a big jump in the playoffs? I'm not ready for that yet, because I got to see how the secondary, which has been revamped, and they got some young kids in there are going to play.
Mhm.
Obviously, the two draftees. Gardner Johnson's back for another run. Let's see how this works, but this team is way better. It's not special like 2 years ago, but it's going to be a better football team. It's going to also be better coached.
Yeah, and listen, just as we finish off this, we just did remaining team needs on offense, and when you can say at 1, 2, maybe 3 of the 5 positions we've talked about, you don't really need depth. Is good here on offense. It's pretty good. So that's always been the thing for the Eagles. Depth, all right. Defense, there are still some spots that we'll talk about where you're a little worried about depth, but here on offense, not too bad. It should be better, and I'm excited that the first game is against the Packers, because it's going to be a real test right off the start.
Oh,
and when does the schedule usually comes out within the first 10 days of May now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, in fact, within the next 2 weeks. In fact, I think they hinted.
It shouldn't be that long. Hopefully it's sooner than that.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the schedule release. Keep talking, I'll tell you.
I think by next week. I said the 8th or 9th, I think that they're planning to have it announced. So I'm sort of fascinated to see how it looks this year. Last year was so, I don't want to say easy. It was much tougher last year than the year before, but all the toughest games were that second half of the schedule.
The gauntlet.
Yeah. And I've been looking at the opponents this year, and I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk like 2 years ago. It may not be as tough as last year, but there are some pretty good teams Eagles are going to be playing this year. It's at least like historically they are, so you expect them to be good. You never know what's going to happen with injuries or anything, but to start it off right away against the Packers is a heck of a way to open up the season.
They're my breakout team over Detroit. I'm gonna probably wind up picking the Packers over the Lions, which is probably a little bit of a risk.
A little bit. I think the Lions might have the best 53 in the NFC, but
Well,
we'll see.
the thing is the scheme, the Packers scheme had to change on defense because it was terrible.
Right.
It was just they were underachieving. They've developed and drafted well. They've just been underachieving. But man, that quarterback Jordan Love was stud last season. Deepest pass target group in the NFL. I love that first game, man. Ooh, that'll be tough.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so next pod, we'll discuss any transactions, any signings that happen, any moves, and then we will go through defense. We'll really go through position by position, break down what the Eagles' remaining needs are as we just zoom into the offseason and really start to see how this roster is going to take shape as it heads into the OTAs. And then, before you know it, it'll be training camp. So
can't wait.
I know I don't want to rush the summer, but we know how this thing works.
And but the mandatory camp, we always get something interesting. You had the Nolan Smith playing off the ball linebacker, which is interesting last year. Was that in the mandatory camp?
I don't remember at this point.
But
I think so. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It just always we always get something interesting that we weren't thinking that was going to happen. We weren't thinking about, and also it's kind of like you get to see the young players and all these new players and the Gene and seeing him practice and Quinyon Mitchell. It's going to be cool, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing the AJ Brown against this group of young defensive backs, man. It's pretty cool.
All right, great stuff. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.